Probably kids should not be separated by saying girls should play with dolls and boys should play with cars.
Hello together and welcome to the Digital Innovation Podcast. My name is Arthur Schäfer and my guest today is Ekatarina Rabe from Pubnative. Hello and welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what Pubnative is doing and what's your daily businesses.
Sure. So my name is Eka. I'm VP programmatic at Pubnative. Probably the title initially doesn't say much to anyone outside of advertising.
Sure.
But I will get back to it a bit later. I'm managing both publisher and advertiser relationships at Pubnative. And basically what Pubnative does is delivering ads to the publishers. This being said, we are helping mobile in-app publishers to maximize their advertising revenues by delivering relevant ads inside of their apps. Obviously, on the other hand side, we're also helping advertisers to achieve their campaign results and access relevant audiences. And our daily business is quite straightforward. We try to onboard new publishers and also obviously optimize the performance of existing publishers. We provide assistance in integrating different products we offer. We monitor daily activity, we help publishers to reach their goals, and as I said, on the other hand side, trying to bring additional value to the advertisers. And as I said, programmatic, which is maybe a kind of a weird word in my title, actually means an automated method of buying media online in real time. Obviously, this technology is using real-time data and algorithms to deliver relevant experience on the one side to the users, also maximize revenues for the publishers because everything happens in 200 milliseconds. And on the other hand side, deliver relevant traffic to the advertisers, again in real time without this mouse-to-mouse communication and negotiations on the pricing and ad placements, but instead everything happens automatically.
Okay, and is programmatic the new big thing in adtech?
Oh no, it has been around for a while now, so I wouldn't say it's a new thing. There's still a lot of unknown, especially for new supply sources. I think in-app is already very well known, and both advertisers and publishers know how to efficiently trade this inventory.
First of all, what do you like about adtech?
There are quite a lot of different things which could come to my mind, but I think the highlights and the most important thing for me is the everyday changing environment. So it's not the same type of business you are doing today, which you're going to do in 2 or 3 years. It's very fast passing, and there are a lot of things happening around you. Which you need to look at, and you need to be constantly updated with newest trends and things happening. I think if you're out of adtech for a couple of months, 1 year, you almost come to a new environment.
Okay. Is it like getting more tech than advertising?
Definitely. It's absolutely more tech than advertising. So advertising is just an end thing which the user sees, but adtech is absolutely powered by tech, and you see that the best players in the industry are those with strong technical products, because obviously advertisers would go there where the good product is.
Okay. When I talk to friends who are working in the VC landscape, they say adtech is really difficult to as an investment. And I think 2 or 3 weeks ago I talked to someone from Axel Springer, and he's like, I love adtech because it's so complex, and it's really you have to understand deep down into the technology. And that's quite interesting. Tell us a little bit about the current trends in adtech, what's going on there.
There are a lot of different directions, obviously, both from the supply perspective and the demand perspective. But if you talk about the general trends, I think there is a lot of buzz about new media channels such as connected TV, digital out of home, programmatically trading audio ads, which might be one day relevant for your podcast.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is a lot of innovation happening around users. Media budgets need to be distributed somewhere. Advertisers are seeking new channels where they can access the consumers in the best way. And as we now spend a lot of time in new places like connected TV, or we see a lot of digital screens outside, obviously those are taking the lead.
What do you think about a car as a potential platform? Because like the navigation display is going to be kind of a marketplace in the next, I don't know, 1-2 years. What do you have any thoughts on that?
Definitely. You are absolutely right. I don't know if you thought about it from the consumer perspective or you were just thinking about it in the preparation for our meeting today. But I have just recently published together with Pubnative an article which is about connecting the entire ecosystem of different digital experiences we have. Mm-hmm. And one is the digital out of home as one of the examples are those screens which you see in the cars or anywhere. The only missing point at this moment of time is how to make this ads contextual and personalized, right? So now on your mobile phone, you all the time see ads which are retargeted to you. So you checked something on your laptop and 5 minutes later it appeared in your mobile. It's not magic, it's called retargeting. So the same should happen in other channels. And while this has been already solved on the technology level between connecting desktop, mobile, web, and in-app, this hasn't been yet solved for anything else. So if you're in a car, you would just be seeing a random ad. But once you would stop seeing random ads and you would actually get the personalized experience, then you can trade this inventory programmatically much better than you could do that as of now.
What about the car sharing industry? Like if you use car sharing, you have always your mobile phone and then you probably get the information what kind of user it is. Is it like a better use case for you or?
So you absolutely can connect already your mobile experiences to your car sharing or taxi driving experiences, because I guess most of the people nowadays who actively use their mobile devices, they would book a taxi on their phone, right? Uber or car sharing. So you already have this data. The only missing piece is the company or technology which would properly connect this.
Okay.
So there is no yet, as I'm aware, company or technology which is doing this cross-channel targeting between all the pieces of the ecosystem.
So it's probably a missing company which is doing that, right?
There are definitely companies which are doing digital out of home, but I haven't heard of technology which kind of complements all the pieces of the puzzle. At least not yet.
Like adtech seems like very, very complex. How do you stay updated?
There are various channels. First and the best for myself, as I manage both publisher and advertiser relationship, of course, talking with clients and vendors. It's always one of the best ways to get personalized information about what's happening. But other than this, obviously, checking some newsletters. I'm subscribed to a bunch of industry-related newsletters, attending different events, which I'm also constantly doing. There are also a bunch of Slack channels, Reddit forums, and so on and so forth.
Have you been to the OMR festival? Or?
Yes, I have been there,
How do you like it? Is it...
to be honest, it was better than my expectations.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was actually quite...
Is it in English or is it German? I haven't been there. So.
It is, well, they have, I heard the talks in different languages, so there are some speakers speaking in English, some in German. From what I heard is that it became way more international than it was before, and also from what I heard, this year it was bigger than the Mexico year before. So it seems like it is picking up, and there's definitely a lot of traction around this event. Yeah, it was actually quite interesting to be there.
Yeah, okay, because I think to go there to attend this event next year, because it's like really huge. I listened to the podcast of Omer, and it's pretty interesting. Okay, how is technology empowering digital marketing today?
I think without technology, there would be no digital marketing in reality. Obviously, the data which is collected, all the artificial intelligence, machine learning, without all of these pieces of the puzzle, and nothing would be possible. So digital marketing absolutely relies on technology. And the better your technology is, the better marketer you would be, because this is the only way how you can understand what's relevant consumers for you, how you can make some learnings and improve your, on one hand side, campaigns as an advertiser, but on the other hand side, as a publisher, also to understand how can you yield more from the traffic you have.
Which technology affected your business the most?
Well, since we're trading programmatically, I guess OpenRTB protocol, which is a standard way of trading inventory programmatically. I mean, our stack is very complex, so there is a lot of teams working hard in engineering, which make it happen. If you can. I think for a usual consumer, it's very difficult to imagine. I mean, he just sees an ad inside of his phone. For most of the consumers, just annoying ad inside of his screen. But in reality, if you think about it, some auction happens in real time. So buyer basically agrees with the supplier somewhere in the nowhere, and this ad is displayed in your screen on the blink of an eye, right? So you can imagine what kind of infrastructure you need to be able to maintain all of this. Just the delivery of that, because it normally would happen under 200 milliseconds, which is a very short period of time. But on top of this, we trade billions of ad requests per day. So we process hundreds of millions users per day. So you can imagine what kind of stack you need to keep this all together. Yeah, sure. Okay.
We had a thing last year which is called GDPR.
Yes.
Or GDPR. Yes. So adtech is a lot of about data and everything. What changed after GDPR for you?
So GDPR, I think, was one of the biggest surprises for everyone. I mean, the regulation was in place for many years, but I think for most of the players in adtech, it still came as a surprise. At least this is how it feels from the industry views I hear and I see. So many companies were not prepared. They didn't necessarily think what kind of hit that would make on their European business. So what we saw a lot of US companies pulling out completely out of Europe and basically closing all the European operations.
Oh, really?
Saying, we don't want to have anything in Europe at this point of time, because we just can't handle GDPR. And then we saw huge fines, like 50 million euros, I believe Google got from French regulators almost instantly. But most of the heat, of course, was taken by smaller companies, which not necessarily were well aware of their regulations. I think bigger players, they were way more prepared. Of course, they have more parts to manage at the same time, and they might face some fines. But I think the biggest issues that created for smaller businesses, which didn't necessarily know what to do and how to deal with GDPR. And I think they still struggle, and still a lot of companies try to figure out various parts of GDPR.
So you have been prepared?
I would say we were semi-prepared. I think no one was really prepared. Even the amount of legal work which was required for GDPR, and also amount of educational work which we had to put in place, because it was very difficult to explain to a US partner why they still need to sign some DPA with you. And also there were a lot of back and forth on the contracts, and who is the processor and who is the controller and why it is like this and how the data is stored exactly. it's still an ongoing process, especially with the CCPA coming in place on 1st of January, which is the California privacy law. Yeah.
But and how do you manage to stay like aligned with the GDPR today?
First of all, we have a DPO, so that's a person who's responsible for everything related to GDPR, so everything on the legal side and all the things which we need to be aware of. He's the main point of contact. Other than this, we are parts of various organizations like IAB, which is also sharing a lot of things now with CCPA more, because it's a new thing. GDPR is kind of an old thing already. Yeah. So you get a lot of information from those organizations which are sharing information, and peer-to-peer, of course, your vendors and partners, they also collect some information here and there, so you get a lot of insights from them as well.
What do you think about the GDPR?
If you want to know my honest opinion, I wish it never happened.
Yeah, sure.
Because at the end, I think it was a regulation with a good intention, but I'm afraid that the execution was not the best.
Okay, is there anything you cannot do anymore because of the GDPR? Like you cannot trade this kind of stuff or something? Or is it just more like work to manage to stay aligned?
Yeah, it is more for extra work to stay aligned. So there is nothing we can't really do. It's just the way how we store and process information is different to prior times, to times before GDPR.
Okay, I think it's like very annoying for like small companies, because they have to hire someone who's like managing everything, and it's like very expensive just to like stay aligned. And for like the big companies, they don't care, like they're just hire like a department or something, and that's it. Like
it's absolutely was very resourceful in all areas. So first, time consuming, but also financially, you need to hire the DPO, which was not present before that. And you need to invest time in this data privacy agreements and so on and so forth. You probably also need to make some tech changes, and every tech change is costing money. I think for big companies, they have their own challenges as well, because when you have a huge organization, you need to align so many different pieces. Even in a small organization, you even need to change the way you treat your HR department, right? Okay. So even the information about your own employees has to be treated differently. So I think the amount of work it created was huge for everyone, just the scope is different.
Are there any other challenges you face as an adtech startup?
Definitely, we have a lot of challenges every day, otherwise we wouldn't be a startup. First, of course, as I said, the fast-pacing environment requires you to being constantly up to date, and even our name says Pubnative, which actually explains a bit where we come from. So we started initially as a native supply side platform, so we only supported native ad units, those beautifully integrated ad formats, which you now see either on Facebook or Instagram or some other apps. But later we transitioned to all the formats, so everything from display ad units to video and so on. And this was one of the changes which we made along the way, just to keep up to speed with publisher requirements and also with the advertiser requirements. So the first challenge is pivoting many times as necessary to satisfy both clients, advertisers and publishers, which can be quite challenging because they have very different ideas of what they'd like to achieve. And second, there are constantly new players coming into adtech, of course, but even more you see now industry consolidating, so bigger players becoming bigger, acquiring emerging companies, and the industry itself becomes mature. So you need to find your differentiator in the market and keep this differentiator and strong USP to differ somehow from everyone else, and bring the value to be present in the industry.
And when you think about like advertising or digital advertising, you always think about like Google, Facebook, and so on. Is it like you compete against them, or do you work with them? Like, how is the situation?
So I definitely wouldn't say that we compete against Facebook and Google. We do work with Google, of course, as majority of the players in the ecosystem. So we see each other as a complementary adtech solution with our own USPs, and we try to bring additional value to the customer by cooperating with everyone we can, rather than positioning ourselves as competitors, and not only because of the size and obvious reasons, but also because we believe that we need to deliver the biggest value to the publisher. We are focusing on the publisher, and by competing with someone, we not necessarily putting ourselves in the value creation which we strive for.
Okay, is it the ultimate goal for an adtech startup to be like acquired from Google, Facebook, or something?
I think that really depends on how the company is structured. So and what are your goals, right? So different founders and different investors have different goals. You saw a lot of mergers and acquisitions, of course, in adtech, but adtech was also very, very hot industry and still is.
Yes.
For acquisitions and mergers.
Yeah.
So of course you saw a lot of funding coming here and there. But I wouldn't say that's the ultimate goal. I think maybe there is an idea that every startup wants to sell. So that's probably the case. But I do think it can differ from founders and it can differ from the goals which the team has in place.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about Pubnative. Like, what is the special thing? What's like the value you provide?
Sure. So I think the biggest differentiator for us in the market is the fact that we offer flexibility to a publisher in terms of the integrations which are available. So we are offering everything from a server-side integration to text to an SDK, which are different technologies powering the exchange. And this is definitely something which not many companies offer. Normally you would see companies offering an SDK solution or tag-based solution. But the fact that we are offering a variety of integrations to the publishers actually opened a lot of doors for us, because instead of convincing the publisher to use specific technology, because that's the only technology we have in place, we actually simply provide the technology which this publisher can easily integrate into his stack and can start running ads immediately. Plus the size of the companies we work with also somehow defines the necessity of providing this flexibility to them, so they can, without too much hassle, integrate your solution. On top of this, I think a different USP is the advertising we bring to the publisher. Normally you would see companies very much focusing on specific countries and mostly around tier 1 countries like United States. We also do that, but on top of this, we do have a very strong presence in let's say, more exotic countries. I mean, they are not really exotic from the geographical point of view, but they are more exotic from an advertising point of view. So we do have a very strong demand in countries like Korea, for example, or Japan, Russia. So countries where you don't necessarily see such huge programmatically traded revenues coming in. And this is, of course, a very exciting part for our publishers as well. As you can imagine, they have traffic from all over the world, and everyone is eager to monetize their US inventory. But it gets a bit more difficult when you have traffic from other countries which you want to sell as well.
But how do you get this kind of traffic, and why your competitors don't use it?
We have a very strong presence in APAC. We started very early. Actually, our first office was in Korea.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
so we went there almost immediately after we launched the office in Berlin. The thing is that those markets are very local, so you can't really do much business there if you don't have local presence. Of course, there are some bigger players which are doing that as well, but let's say medium tier companies to small companies are not necessarily going directly to APAC because it requires a lot of local network. You need to set up your office, which can be quite challenging if you don't know how to do it in a foreign country, especially such a specific country like Korea. Or Japan. So I think the fact that we went very quickly to those countries, we also have an office in Beijing, and we immediately hired local people with experience and know-how that helped us a lot to penetrate and get in touch with local budgets and advertisers.
Do you have any more plans to get to new places?
Yes, definitely. We do have. I think we will follow a few other emerging markets. Like Brazil, for example, we do trade a lot of traffic from Brazil, but we have some other plans as well as some other APAC countries. Actually, we are pretty successful in different countries in APAC, so I think we will continue the trend.
What is the next place you want to open an office?
Perhaps it will be Japan.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Why Japan?
A lot of local inventory, so a lot of local apps, which are not necessarily, you and me, we don't know them, but they're heavily used there. So this is untouched inventory. Also, there are obviously advertisers which want to reach those consumers, but they can't really reach them through the apps which people here use, right?
Yeah.
So we need to somehow solve this by bringing local supply, so the apps from, let's say, Japan, or apps which are heavily used there, to the advertisers here, which are probably trading some of their products or services in Japan.
Wenn euch die Folge gefallen hat, hinterlasst mir bitte eine 5-Sterne-Bewertung bei iTunes, gebt mir gerne euer Feedback, stellt eure Fragen oder Wünsche. Ansonsten wünsche ich euch eine erfolgreiche Woche und bis bald.